I'm back again on the same day because I was so excited about this weaving project. I did not want to wait for another week. So it took me, I'm going to say 3.5 hours tops to warp the loom for a hashtag scarf in a different colorway and different color patterning. This time I was going for a plaid, and I'm not sure that I explained that when I first uh, talked about this project in the first video. So this green you see here is actually the header. So just try to ignore that. Then I had changed the pattern draft, the threading draft a little bit so that I would have 5 hashtags instead of 4. And I made them a little bit smaller so that this scarf would not be as wide as a shawl. 3.5 hours of warping later, I was able to get started. And right now you're seeing it off tension. I don't have any tension on the warp. And I want to zoom in a little bit closer so that you can see how the hashtags look when I stripe for the hashtags as in only and use the background color only in the plain weave areas. There's something else I want to point out before I demonstrate weaving with a stretchy warp, which is a little bit different than weaving with a non-stretchy warp. Uh, when I finished winding my warp chains with a cream-colored Shetland yarn from a sheep named Berry White, which just kills me every single time, I only had this much yarn left. And I knew that was not going to be anywhere near enough yarn to weave the entire scarf. And I had a shuttle full and then this cake of the colored yarn, the multicolored yarn left. And I am a little worried that I'm going to run out of this if I plan to do the color stripes as frequently as my original treadling calls for, which is every 12 picks. So there's a part at the beginning where you do it for 20 picks, and then in between the hashtags, it's 12. Uh, but we as weavers get to make exciting decisions as we work. So I went into my stash and I have so much natural colored cream or off-white yarn. It's not even funny. And I found what's actually a softer yarn with less vegetable matter in it. I loved spinning Berry White. It was a really fun spin, but he was kind of a dirty sheep. There was a lot of EM in the spinning. And he's more of there's a little more yellow, and there's a lot of luster, but there's a little more yellow in his fleece. Whereas this hand spun debouillé from Good Clean Fiber had no vegetable matter and is a little brighter, a little less lustrous, and a little more on the white side of the spectrum than the yellow cream colored side. So in the end, I don't think anybody's really going to notice that there's a slight difference in shade, or if they are, it's just going to look even more rustic and exciting. So the other thing about this project, because I am worried about running out of my multicolor, is I'm going to make much longer, at least 20 picks in between the hashtags. And I'm not quite sure yet how big I want to make these plain weave areas. So when I measure the 20 pick area, it comes out to 3.25 inches not under tension and about 2.25 inches for the areas in between. 3.25 feels a lot safer to me, and if I end up with leftover yarn in this colorway, I have plans. So let's talk now about weaving with a stretchy warp, and I'm going to have to move the camera so that I can sit at the loom. So on one level, weaving with a stretchy wool yarn or any knitting yarn is not that different from weaving with say, a weaving cotton or a cotton warp or a bamboo or any of the other yarns I've used before, uh, until you're trying to advance your warp. And then it does make a difference, because if I advance my warp too far, I don't have enough. I don't have enough left to beat. So because I've got a trap on my standard floor loom, uh, the front of the beater will hit the back of the trap unless I'm careful not to advance too far. So when I advance, I'm only going to advance what looks like an inch at most, and then I'm going to let the ratchet advance lever do the rest of the work, because otherwise I'm going to have to get up, and I have already done this frequently. I'm going to have to get up and go to the back of the loom and tighten everything up with the warp beam crank handle. Now, something else that often befuzzles people when they are working with their first wool yarn, especially a very bouncy, buoyant hand spun like this is they think they've got to have a super tight tension to get a good shed, and that's actually not the case. Uh, if you overdo the tension on your stretchy warp, when you take the tension off, it's really going to notice. It's kind of going to ping like the curls on the head of Ramona the Pest's little friend, where it just kind of goes boing, and that is generally not desirable. Uh, so you have to find a happy medium between enough tension to get a good shed without overstretching. And the same when you're laying the weft yarn in the shed. I could pull on this till kingdom comes and never have a perfect selvage unless I'm holding on to the end, but then I need to let it relax before I beat. Finally, you might have noticed that something is happening over here on this right selvage, and that is that I am crossing the yarns over each other, because I don't want to have to, with a really chunky yarn like this, a worsted, well, actually a very uneven, but we'll call it a worsted weight for the purposes of this discussion. With a really fat yarn, if you're starting and stopping the different colors all the way through, you're going to have a lot of buildup. So I am choosing to carry the unused yarn along the selvage, and when I get to the next color change, which should be very soon, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Whoops, that was the wrong shed. 17. 18. 19. 20. I'm going to lay my cream colored yarn in a way that I've just got a loop of it hanging over the edge. And then when I start my multicolor pattern and weave back to the right selvage, I just put the loop of it, of this cream colored yarn, over the shuttle. And then I've automatically wrapped my yarn. And I'm good to go for the next pass. I just want to keep a hand on the yarn that I am, what the heck am I doing here? See, this is what happens when you try and count and talk at the same time. This needed to be shed number 3 again, treadle number 3 again. I just want to carry the yarn loosely across the right selvage, and then I'm good to go. Now, this is obviously going to make a really noticeable color pattern along the right selvage, and this is why I want to keep some of this multicolor in reserve, because I had meant to do this and I actually forgot, and then I realized it wouldn't have mattered anyway. I had meant to run two ends of the multicolor on each selvage in the warp, but then I would have still had all this white showing on one selvage and not the other. So after I take it off the loom, I'm going to decide if I want to, for instance, knit an I-cord, an applied I-cord along the length of the selvage on each edge, or single crochet or double crochet, or if I just like the asymmetrical look. But I can virtually guarantee I'm not going to just like the asymmetrical look. I'm just kind of not an asymmetrical type of person. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, the scarf is taking shape very fast, and this plaid pattern is really thrilling my eye. Uh, and now more of the colors are what people are going to notice until they walk up and see, they look more closely and see these little hashtags happening. So the hashtag scarf in a two color colorway is cooking with gas.